you. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to 2024. It already feels like it's going fast. So we are here today from the Sacred You community, which is a beautiful community of like-minded souls. We've got panelists, we've got a ton of tribes where you can join us and be a part of the Sacred You community. And before we finish off our discussions today, I will spend a few minutes talking about how you can join us and what you receive. In the meantime, what I'd love to do is first introduce you to what this call is about. Then I'm going to hand you over to each panelist to introduce themselves. And then we'll get into the juicy questions. How does that sound? So I love this topic. And sometimes it's hard for me to be quiet, but when I need to be, I do. Sit in stillness and quiet. So this is what our conversation is about. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. It means that when we stop talking and calm our minds, we can understand things better. It's like turning down the volume on a noisy radio to hear the subtle tune, and I so get that. We want to explore in today's panel discussion how this idea has affected our own lives in a world that's often loud and busy. And we'll talk about why it's important to find those moments of peace and quiet. And each of our panelists will be sharing their comments and stories in regard to the questions that I asked through this, and where it may lead us organically, we will go with the flow. So first of all, let me hand you over to these beautiful ladies that can share a little bit about themselves. And remember that everybody that is on this panel discussion today, all their links to contact them and learn more about their beautiful mission and purpose in life will be in the comment sections below this recording. And feel free to ask any questions as we move along, and we'll come back in and have a look at the comments after the replay is put down. So first of all, Sky, I'm handing it over to you to introduce yourself.
Hello, beautiful people. So yes, my name is Sky, and just to keep it nice and short, I am a shadow integration specialist. So I work with a lot of integration of rejected parts to create wholeness and healing and breaking the cycle and all the good things. So
Yummy. And I have looked at some of your work and I've loved it. It's very in alignment with what some of the work that I do. So thank you. Heidi.
Hi. I'm so glad to be here. This is one of my favorite topics too. I'm an author and a speaker, as well as a coach that helps you to become your own best friend by stopping the voices in our head that don't talk to us nicely, or at least making friends with them so that life is easier. Additionally, I have a retreat center outside of Washington, D.C., where I do my own retreats, as well as have wonderful, wonderful teachers come in and do their own retreats. And then I get to cook, and just like having a big slumber party all weekend for me. I get to cook and hang out and learn really fun things.
That sounds so fun. Absolutely. And we have Pamela. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me here today. And this is a great topic. I'm also an author, I'm a dream interpreter, and I'm a psychic and spiritual growth coach. And I have a tribe at Sacred You, mystical dream interpretation. So I hope if you're interested in dreams, please come see me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I am Julie Nelson, Rich Witch, artisan botanical perfumer, astrologer, and creator of the Fragrant Oracle. So I work with women to help them rise unapologetically in their fullness and in their truth, working with aromatherapy, astrology, magic, ritual, and all of the beautiful, luscious tools that I have that I can bring together. And what we will do is get started and get on to these questions. And just remember that everybody's links will be below and that you're welcome. For anybody that's watching us now or the replay, you can please comment, please share, and ask questions, because that gets us all motivated as well. So the first question is, how does this quote or saying feel for you? The quieter you become, the more you can hear. And so what does it mean to you personally? And how has it influenced you in your life, in your business, and your perspective on this? So, Pamela.
I knew you were going to pick on me first. That's okay. I'm just going to say with it, okay, the self-talk in my head right now is like, don't mess up, don't look foolish, but that's a good example of the noise in my head. Okay, so whatever comes to mind, I'm going to say. I look at this two ways. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. One, with conversations with people. Okay, I mean, I remember there was a time when people would talk and they'd say something, and all of a sudden I got a conversation in my head of what I want to say next, and I just want them to be quiet so I can say what I'm going to say. Okay. And but I also remember the first time somebody actually listened to me. This was like back in the 90s, and I was so used to people cutting me off and not really listening, that when one woman who really, she was like a spiritual advisor, and she listened to me, and like after a minute, I'm like, are you there? Are you there? Because I wasn't used to people listening to me. And these days I get annoyed if someone constantly cuts me off. Okay. So in the art of conversation is also, you can hear a lot more if you're quiet and you tune out the messages in your head. The other part that I'm thinking of, the quieter you become, the more you can hear, is with the everyday noise. Like, and I've done this, when I don't want to feel, is a good way of putting it. I'm going to listen to loud music. I'm going to watch TV. I'm going to do anything possible. But when I get quiet, even like showers, I get the best messages when in the shower, because obviously I have to be quiet, or I'm hand washing dishes or something like that. And it's amazing the messages that come through. It really is. So yes, I guess you could say you can hear nature, you can hear, your angels, you guys, whatever you want to call it. You can hear a higher soul, but you can also hear like that still voice within. How it has affected me personally. And it's funny because I thought of this the other day and it came up again. So here I am being quiet, listening. And so I think I need to share this. Back in the 90s, obviously I'm older, I was at this hypnosis seminar, and what he did is he did an induction, and I don't need much to like get into a meditative state, and he was going on and on, and I was getting bored. Okay. And what was really cool is, because I was in such a meditative state, I don't know if I went into the dream or I started remembering a dream that I had the night before. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember this, And then when I came out of the meditation, I forgot it again. But I thought that was really cool because I was quiet and it like replayed itself. So now I'm going to be quiet and listen to what others have to say.
You're muted, Julie.
You're muted.
That's my favorite thing to do. Not. I'm always doing it on Zoom. That's why sometimes I try not to mute myself. I just wanted to pick up too, so feel free to incorporate it where Pamela said we live in this noisy world, which is one of the questions. So feel free to integrate that as Pamela did. One of my favorite things is nature. I love to be quiet in nature and just listen to every rustle, every part of what's going on. And I once lived on a 40-acre property in a valley, and oh my gosh, and it was quite very isolated. We lived off grid. And one of my favorite things was I used to say to people, I can hear the grass grow. And my favorite thing to do in the morning after I've fed the horses, let the chooks out, fed the cat and dog and the bunny, is I would sit on our veranda with a cuppa and just be. And it was like the most beautiful meditation with the leaves rustling from the breeze. And for me, that is the best way to be in stillness. I just had to share that because that thought came up, that memory came up. So thank you. Sky, over to you. Do you need me to read the question out again?
No, that's okay. I've got it up
Right.
in the chat, which is amazing. And yeah, I love everything that sort of Pamela says, and I can sort of really relate. And it's sort of, I guess for me, the quieter you become, the more you can hear it. The first thing that even comes to my mind is like literally the busy pace that we live our lives, or we're taught to live our lives, running away from everything. And it's like the more you become quiet and still, the more your own resources, your own messages, what you need in order to, gain the knowledge you want, heal, like be your most true authentic self, that all comes through. And I guess in the same for me, I spent a lot of my time, my early 20s, like running, because I just didn't want to face what was inside of me. And so I kept busy and I kept the noise very loud and, basically, nope, I don't want to do this. I'm just going to be doing what everyone else tells me to do. And I'm just going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And unfortunately, you end up hitting a point where you're forced to be quiet, really, because you kind of just get knocked on your ass. The universe just sort of says, no, you need to actually listen now, and you're not listening. You're not becoming quiet. So here you go. And that in itself is really, truly like sort of influenced my life and perspective, if you want to look into the system or anything like that. So, I was late 30s diagnosed with ADHD, and you hear a lot of the talk around, neurodivergence and how busy and how loud they are and how much they move and all that sort of stuff. And, it's actually, even still for my brain, it's so important to become quiet, because there's so much less overwhelm, there's so much less pressure, there's so much less of all of the symptoms that come along with it when I'm actually really still. And I think a lot of teachings around this is so important now, so we can, I guess in that sense, break that cycle of that belief that you can't become quiet, because that's something I hear quite a lot is, oh, you have this busy mind, you can't become quiet. Well, actually you can.
Absolutely.
You might just go about it a slightly different way. And, the same as what like Julie says, like I love being in nature. I love being around water. That in itself is very calming to me. It's very still, it's very quiet. I love I love meditating on the beach. It's like my favorite place to be. And before Christmas, I was, gifted with a beautiful shaman that I got to birth an ocean drum. So I now get to sit in my house and actually like play my ocean drum and be basically by the water. And it's just, when people watch me do that, they're like, oh, you just become in this awesome trance-like state. you know, and the same with Pamela saying, so I'm a hypnotherapist. So, you know, doesn't take a lot for me to go into that meditative state, doesn't take a lot for me to go into that beautiful trance, but you get so much like awesome stuff come up when you're in that amazing state, and it just beautiful reminder of like how powerful you actually are.
I got goosebumps down my neck when you were talking about the drumming, because I'm excited because I'm receiving a drum soon, and because my last one just split. It was 25 years old and it had been in storage for a while, and I was so devastated. Anyway, the other thing that reminded me when you were talking about being in the trance state is dance is my thing. And I love to dance. And sometimes I find, because, you know, you close your eyes, I actually have to open my eyes because I feel like I'm going to lift off, which is great. But it's just, you know, you've got to be mindful of other people in the room. So drumming, yes, and dancing, it's beautiful. And the other thing I thought too with something Pamela mentioned was how messages come to you in the shower or on the loo or when you're driving, when you least expect it. And sometimes I think, damn, I want to write that down because, you know, I might forget by the time I've finished my routine. So it's really good to be very mindful of those messages. I love it, you know, and when I'm driving as often, you know, because you're focused on driving, but I don't even have the radio on when I'm driving because I get so many messages, and often that's when I have conversations with my mum, and I love it, and she's there. So it's beautiful being in that stillness. Yeah, thank you. I want to read out what before we move on to Heidi, Trina spoke this or wrote this. When we speak, we repeat what we already know. When we listen, we learn something we don't know. And that's a very interesting comment. And I might go as far as to say, well, we do know it, but we just don't know that we know it. So it's coming up, yeah, and brings our attention to it. So thank you. Heidi, let's hear from you.
Gosh, I can ditto everything that's been said so far. Especially, I love that Pamela brought up about the listening, because so often we're listening for what we want to respond instead of truly sitting and quietly listening and allowing a response to come up. And there's a big difference, and especially as a teacher and coach and things like that, I think it's so important. I've actually spent time teaching other coaches how to stop trying to figure out what to say next, because then our that really intelligent, that innately intelligent part of us actually comes up with so often, so many times, things that I would have never thought to say. You know, and that's the fun part when you learn to listen in that quiet space. And then there's so many stuff that Sky was saying about, you know, the drumming and how that can take you into a place. One of the things, though, that I think that's really coming up that I do want to point out that I was so fortunate to learn in the early 80s from my teacher, Rosalind Briere. Women, the feminine side, we go into silence differently. Most meditation practices that we've been taught, you sit, you're quiet, you're still. And that's actually very masculine. And we have feminine, masculine, everybody's on a different level within that. The thing that helped me was she taught me moving meditation. And once I learned that to still my mind, I don't have to sit down, stop, and still my body. I actually, in the movement of my body, I get to still my mind. And that was so key for me. Now, as I've gotten older, I'm in my late 60s now, and as I've gotten older, I have noticed that I can quiet quicker. But it's so essential. I've spent the last 3 months mostly by myself and in quiet. And sometimes in the quiet, things come up we may not ever want to remember. Yet, if we can sit with them, we find out that those things aren't so bad, and they're just part of us, and we can integrate with them and become friends with them. Like Sky was saying, if I know I need to shut my mind and my emotions down because I've got something to deal with, I will get noisy. I will intentionally turn some loud music on or a book or, something to completely distract me because I may need to, especially if something has happened. If, for example, finding out about a friend of mine who had cancer, and very dear friend of mine, and I had a client 10 minutes later. I didn't have time to really process that. And it was such a deep thing that I couldn't just tell my mind, okay, we're going to put you on the side and deal with this later. I actually had to do a distraction to kind of shut down my emotions. So we can do that both ways. But the quieter we become, the more you can hear is just such a profound statement. Whether we're in nature, whether we're in our home, whether we're just it's something fun to practice when you're in a whole crowd of people. Because for me, when I go into that deep silence in a group of people, I actually start hearing the energy and the energy tones of the individuals around me and able to really tune into much more. It's like in that silence, all the other senses that aren't even related to the five senses, they now know they've defined over 22 senses that we have. And so often we're used to these physical senses. But what I find is in that quiet, all of a sudden, all those other senses become alive. And I can start feeling what's going on around me, start feeling the people, what they're feeling, thinking, what they're sensing. It's just a lot of fun. I'm so grateful I was introduced to silence probably almost 50 years ago now. Because it's just such a cool, it's fun. It's a fun, and we're scared of the silence. When we can actually go in there, you can find out that it's a really fun place to hang out.
Yeah, it is. It is. I love it. I do. I love something to focus on, like nature, because I go into quite a trance and meditative state. But I actually also spend a lot of time here on my own because I live on my own. And there's me and my cats, and one of my most beautiful spaces to be in silence. I've got 5 unicorns, 5 mini horses, and being with them is the most magical time. And I can just sit on the ground with them because, they're 30 and 34 inches high. And we just sit nose to nose, and it's like listening to their breathing. And I even love lying on the ground close to them when they're eating and just listening to their munching, because it just really connects me. And I find that stillness, it's not completely quiet, but it's such a magical thing that it puts me into that state of where I'm not even receiving messages. I'm absolutely in that moment. And it's like nothing else in the world matters. So for me, that's another kind of being in stillness and quiet and not receiving messages. I'm receiving the medicine, the magic from my unicorns. And oh my God, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, if I might add to that, it is because I have horses too, and there's nothing like being in the barn and just hearing the munch and the quiet and the breathing. And I think what that does for me is it pulls me so into the present.
Yes. Yes.
And that's this when I'm talking about silence, and I thank you for saying that, because that's really where the lovely silence for me is, where you're just in the present. And yeah.
It's quite incredible. I don't know if Sky and Pamela have if around horses or had the opportunity, but and time I think I may have been with them for half an hour, and suddenly when I get back in my car, because they're not with me at the moment, I've been there for 2 hours. Time is it's just amazing. It's beautiful, very magical. So beautiful sharing. And I feel like with the first three questions, they've kind of been integrated into our first one, which means we can get through these. And also, depending on time, we can perhaps share more experiences after this. So we've shared some personal experiences. Let's have a look at some specific practices or techniques which we can talk about. For me, it's really like I go to my horses, like not just because I want to be with them, but because they are my medicine and my healing. And that is one of my practices. But what can you recommend for any practices or techniques that people can do if they want to incorporate more silence or listening into their lives? We've sort of delved into it a little bit, but is there anything specific? Heidi, let's start with you.
I've actually got a couple. One, especially for a very busy, chattery mind, you can get apps now that can generate signals at certain hertz.
Mm-hmm.
The hertz of 111 actually shuts down the speech center in the brain. And I don't mean shuts it down like you couldn't talk, you go whatever. It calms the speaking inside. So for example, I do a lot of sound baths with my singing bowls and my drums and stuff. And what I've started a while ago, but what I do is I run that tone at the very beginning when people are starting to settle in, set down, and you can just, everyone says they can just watch the chatter in their mind just start to come down. Because sometimes it can be hard to do that on our own, especially, when you're in a time crunch because things are happening. You've got an hour to do a sound bath. And this allows people to just really calm. So that's a real quick science hack that and a lot of my clients that have had ADHD and they do have the chatter going on in their mind, that tends to calm it down, just helps it to happen easier. Because I fully agree with you, Sky. I'm ADHD, quote unquote. I'm lucky I was in school in the 60s and 70s and we weren't defined. We were always put in the bad class and they tried to put us on Valium and other things to calm us down, but we hadn't been defined. We hadn't been told we can't stop our mind. We hadn't been told all the things that we can't do. So I didn't know I couldn't calm my mind. So that's one of the things. And then another one that I like that helps me bring me present and quiet my system real quickly is I just tune into my heart. And I take a breath and I feel myself breathing in and out of my heart. And I just do that. And I learned this is through the heart math work that I do with the Heart Math Institute up in California. They've been doing research for I don't know, 30 some years now. What happens is when you go down into your heart, you quiet your breath, and then you think of whatever's a rejuvenating emotion for you, like joy, peace, whatever. That also helps you to center really quickly, as well as it helps to center everybody in the room with you. I've been in meetings where I've been negotiating stuff and everybody's like crazy and off the wall. And I'll just go into my heart and all of a sudden people are starting to calm down. So those are two quick, easy hacks. Hacks, I hate that word, but I keep using it all the time. I spent 25 years in the computer industry, so it's just automatically in there. But they're quicker. They are things that can help us to quickly move in when we don't either have enough time to just, or there's some kind of pressure on us that doesn't let us just get present as quickly as we can.
Yeah, beautiful. I love heart math. I've looked into it a lot and it's just such an amazing realm of practices and rituals, and as
Well,
you
and
said,
what's
so very simple.
Yeah, and what's really exciting about it is they've actually been doing the research. So this isn't just a practice, which unfortunately we need a lot of research in our environment now for people to pay attention to what you're saying. Again, another
Yes.
advantage of being in the 60s and 70s, I could listen to somebody go, "Oh, that's so cool," not, "Can you prove it?"
Yes, we never needed the science back then. It's like,
And I was also a biophysics major, so I was very excited now that the science is proving what we've always known. We've
yes,
always known that our heart is actually the energy of our heart is much bigger than the energy of our mind and our brain. We've
yes,
known now through heart mass work and other institutes, they're saying, well, yeah, isn't that amazing? The heart is bigger than the brain.
yes, yes.
Energetic.
It's by meters too, like our heart energy can ripple out so much farther than our brain head energy. I'm glad you brought that up because I love it. Sky.
Well, one, I was like, I'm loving sort of everything that Heidi was saying. I'm kind of starting to feel like I was supposed to be born in the 60s and not in like the late 80s, early 90s type thing. Because yeah, I'm very much like, oh my God, that sounds so cool. Like, and and I don't like, need the proof of it or, and that's just my little superpower. I love the patterns. But I think that's the fun thing is there is actually so much, like so much stuff we can do, so many practices that, that don't require us to, sit still in like a room silence if you've never really, gone into a silent space or a meditative space or anything like that. And, a couple of ones, I guess, right off the bat that I really love is one is walking, again, nature, but like walking without your headphones, and just listening to the trees or the birds or, like even your feet moving if you're moving on gravel or, concrete or anything like that, that just, you become, it's almost like the same when you're driving, you just become so quiet, your like your ego, your conscious mind, whatever you want to call it, it shuts off and you get so much cool stuff coming through. Things like coloring in or I can't remember the technical name for it, but there's it's like line drawing and it's you just draw, you end up creating some amazing cool pieces of art, but you're literally just drawing little lines over and over and over again on the paper and it just expands. I've had clients that I've like had love for woodwork and he really struggled to become quiet or meditation and he had lots of grief about people, like he would always go into his shed and I'm like, you realize like it's almost sometimes your mind, your brain will do it unconsciously, it'll seek out ways and things to become quiet, and I said to him, that's your your quiet space, that's you entering into the quietness, it's and you're being able to be creative all at the same time. Same as Heidi, I use a lot of frequency music as well. Like, and I love it. Like, I'll just have it on. And a couple of other ones as well is like, if you have a practitioner or if you're well practiced in it, is a beautiful practice called Hakalau, which is a Hawaiian practice. And it's a conscious meditative state where you just concentrate on a spot just above eye level and you just let everything else float away. And all of these really cool concepts is a process of taking you out of the thought. Like, our minds, we recycle the same mental chatter over and over and over again. Like, we think that we're thinking, but really what we're doing is we're just recycling the same thought over and over again. And doing all of these practices, whether it is sitting in meditation, whether it is walking, whether it is, dance, movement, drumming, sound, hertz, what we're doing is we're breaking the barrier and moving into our space of thinking, which is a quantum linguistics term. But it's all about finding a practice that is going to align with you. like as Heidi said, like me personally with ADHD, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 35, so I was sat in the back of the class, all of those sort of things. And it wasn't until, just recently where all this stuff was coming out. And by that stage, I'd already had learned how to become quiet. I just followed the threads that said, oh, this is the right path for me. And, rather than seeking proof that it was right, I just did it because it was right for me. So finding a practice that's going to be really aligning with you and understanding that, yeah, that's it. You don't have to just sit in a dark room in silence. You can go out, stick bare feet on the ground, like sit under the moonlight. Even yesterday, I had a light code tattooed, which is why I've got like this really cool patch, like shiny on my chest at the minute. But in that process, yay! In that process, I was lying under 2 copper pyramids. Oh, that was amazing. I was just like, can I just stay here forever? Like, I don't care that you've like got a needle in me right now. I'm just like in this amazing state of, presence.
Beautiful.
But yeah, so
I just had my codes that I've had for 4.5 years. I couldn't decide where to put it. So now it's on, had it done last week and I love it. Thank you. I've got some ideas, but I'll share after Pamela. I was kind of drifting off then because of what Sky was saying, like I could really feel it. That's why I've got to, come back because I was just visualing and I'm very much a feeling person. I've got so much water, so I tend to like actually feel it in my body when people are speaking. So it's powerful. Pamela.
Thanks. Oh, wow. First of all, I want to thank Heidi for saying like how the female gets quiet differently and meditates, because I know like walking, as Sky said, that's, sometimes like I'm walking and somebody will want to come and talk to me and it's like, no, 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 I'm like in my own space. There's and it doesn't necessarily have to be like, even my neighborhood, every morning I go for a walk and I enjoy that quiet time. So yeah, I think sometimes in the doing and in the creating, we can get quiet. Like I haven't done it in a while, but like making jewelry. I used to like beading and stuff and just the things that and being quiet and maybe having pretty music on the background, some new age music, or creating oracle cards, which I love to do because it's like it's getting quiet and it's just allowing, I want to say, things to flow. Or writing, because I love to write, whether that's a blog or in your journal or whatever, because it's getting quiet in a sense, because it's getting all that stuff in your head out, especially journaling. It's allowing you to get in touch with yourself and and your innerness, but it's also connection to a higher source too, if that makes sense. Okay. Yoga is a great way, and that's like, the meditations where they're like, you know, tighten up your hands, let it go. Tighten up your arm, let it go. It's helping being quiet, but you don't, because yeah, sometimes I like to close my eyes and just or focus on a word or whatever, and that's great too. But I'm also, in the Western world. So, and the other thing that I was thinking of too, when you guys were talking about horses, is I have cats. I love cats. And one of my favorite things to watch is when they clean their paw. And excuse my, but there's just something so peaceful about it. Or when they're on top of me, purring or just petting them. And because honestly, I think cats are one of the best meditators and being quiet, and talking about nature, we can learn so much about them. And the other one of my favorite times is like that time right before you go to sleep and that time right before you wake up. It's like that inner space. That is like such a beautiful place to be. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Pamela. You reminded me too, one of my cats, I've just rescued another cat, so I've only had her 3 months and she's still like, she's very at home, but she's I keep going to say an alley cat. She's found in a colony in a scrap heap and she's just beautiful. But my other cat, she sits on my chest. So it doesn't matter if I'm lying down or sitting up, working on the computer, I've got big boobs. So she can comfortably sit there. And it forces me, in a way, to be still. And she's purring away and we're having lots of cuddles. And it is beautiful to be in that moment. And it's what I love about that, and with being with my horses and nature, when I walk, I'm often touching the bush, because I've got some beautiful fire trail, because in the mountains here there's lots of bush, and whenever I'm walking through it, I can't help but touch and talk to it. And yeah, it's a place of stillness. Even if I'm talking and touching nature, it's connection, which is the biggest thing for me, that magical connection with the animals and nature. And some of the things I have to bring in perfume. So I only work with, I'm a clinical aromatherapist of 31 years. And so I work with botanical perfumery for the psychological and emotional and retraining the brain. And so I've got little perfumes, whether they're sprays or anointing oils or just my essential oils, all over the place. And sometimes, well, often it's whether I'm sitting down or I'm passing through a part of my place, pick up even just smelling from the bottle and being really present in that moment. Because if we're loving an aroma, we're attracted to a particular scent, it immediately helps to relax our nervous system, and we tend to come back more into our breathing. It's very pleasurable, and it's like, and it might only last a second, or it might last a few minutes, and it can carry on. And it's a really beautiful place to pull yourself back into that quiet space. And I use it a lot with my clients for retraining the brain, and using affirmations or spells or intentions. And it's very, very powerful, because what happens is, if we have an intention to be calm, to be in stillness, to feel the pleasure or connect deeply with ourselves, we smell the perfume, we can spray it on and drop it on, smell it. We smell it, we speak that intention, and then smell it again, and it locks it into our limbic brain, it anchors it in. So the next time we smell that perfume, that intention is triggered in the forefront of our brain, and we will automatically go into that state of peace, or whatever it is that we intend to experience. It's very, very powerful, and it's very pleasurable. And it also brings us back into our breath, because we're inhaling and just releasing and letting it go. And it's like filling up the body with that intention, and plumping up every cell in our body, so it's there and we can activate it at any time. And the other thing Sky mentioned is art. I do a lot of art, and with clients, I am an artist, and I run these challenges, and we do hearts or sankalpa flowers, and we put words on and then color them in, and you go into such a meditative state. It's really beautiful because you're focusing on the words and the color, but you're so present in that moment that it brings that beautiful stillness. So there are a few things that I love to do and practice myself, as well as work with my clients. So thank you, everybody. So we've got about 10 minutes to talk more. There is another question here. Can you discuss connection between self-reflection, introspection, and the idea of becoming quieter to gain greater insights to oneself? I feel like we've covered some of this, but let's just open up. And is there anything else that you would like to share about this topic? Who would like to go first? Because we've kind of covered a lot of stuff in a short space of time, but there's certainly room for you to add more. Sky?
Yeah, so I was going to mention, or just like pretty much, concur with Pamela on journaling, essentially. So self-reflection, inspection, becoming quieter to gain greater insights to oneself is like, yeah, journaling is a beautiful practice to do that, and it's about sort of then becoming really curious, if something pops up, and then it's asking those follow-up questions to yourself and allowing that, space for the answers to come in, or you pull the thread, or, however that sort of really looks for you, to be able to, gain insights, resources, learnings, what it means, lessons, like all of those beautiful things. It's pretty much one of my like favorite practices that I teach my clients, essentially, because, I feel like my mission and my goal is to be able to teach my clients the tools that they need to be able to do this work, not to be reliant on me to give them the answers that they need for them to be able to discover it for themselves, and to be able to then continue to grow, evolve, and, us as, I think my beautiful business partner, like spirits piloted by a meat popsicle, here on this earth to grow and to evolve. And a lot of how we do that is to self-reflect and answer the questions and get everything we all need is already here. It's all here inside of us. It's, accessing it. And that's one of the, I think one of the, wouldn't say the easiest, but one of the most relatable ways to do that, where anyone can do it.
I love that. I also often will, because we do know everything, it's about being able to know how to tap into it, or trusting ourselves. And I often ask myself the question, what is it that I need to know? Speaking to my higher self, the universe, we are the universe is us. And the answers don't always come straight away, but it's like, in the shower, while you're driving, whatever you're doing, yes. And sometimes we may even move into it and then realize that that is what we needed to know at that time. Yeah. Heidi.
I love what Sky was saying, because when we learn to do that sort of self-reflection in a non-judgmental, treating yourself, if an infant or a young child were to say or do something, you generally wouldn't hurt them for doing that. They don't know. And when we can start doing that for ourselves, and starting making those connections and being able to really be self-reflective and introspective without the judgment that goes along with that, what happens then is we become what I call sovereign. And I really believe the biggest part of our development, why we're on the earth, and the evolution of our individual beings, is that we become sovereign. As Sky, as you were saying, we have all the answers inside. We may not know how to tap into them. We may not know how to listen. And it's kind of like, being the spirit in this body. part of what we're learning is how to listen to that inner guidance, that inner knowledge, that self-reflection. And so taking time to do that, journaling is a wonderful practice. Asking yourself, many times before I go to bed at night, I ask, can my dream time provide insights? And I've learned to put a caveat on that. And can you please give me the answers after I've woken up and the sun is up?
That's really good.
Otherwise, at 3 o'clock in the morning or 3:30 is generally the time I tend to get woken up, and it's like, oh no, I really want to sleep. And if I don't get up and write or do something, then I'll go to sleep and I'll go, wow, I know I had a really amazing insight last night. And and then I have to do a practice to actually get silent to rehear the insight. Whereas so I always ask very gently, could you please give me the answer once I'm awake and the sun is up and I'm moving, please.
I love that, because that happens to me, and it's just, yeah. I have a notebook next to my bed, but I'm going to put that caveat in place now.
And I think the sovereignty, becoming the sovereignty that we need to regain, because the outside world has tried to pull us outside of ourselves so much. Somebody else knows better than me.
Mm.
And as you were saying, Sky, you know what's best for you. And once you start understanding that and listening to that, and just even playing with it with simple things like, what should I wear today?
Mm. Mm.
Oh, all of a sudden the red shirt comes up, or the whatever, and just wear it and see how you feel in it. That it's the more you can gain that relationship, because the primary relationship we have in this world is with ourselves. You from conception to your last breath, you are with yourself continuously. You cannot get away from yourself. Even if you're doing drugs, drinking, shopping, whatever we may want to do to actually distract, we're still always with ourselves. So
Yeah.
that's really, becoming our own best friend and learning to have that relationship with ourselves consciously and in a fun way is really fun.
Mm. It is. It is. Thank you. Pamela, got a few minutes?
Yeah, Heidi, I was actually going to say, because I'm a dream interpreter, and one way where you can really connect with your self-respect, reflection, and gaining greater insights into yourself is by interpreting your dreams, because our dreams are all about us. And one thing that drives me crazy as a dream interpreter, and I understand people don't know what their symbols are, right? What symbols are. And they go right away to a dream dictionary. And it's like, no, what does the symbol mean to you? But not only what does the scene, think of like your past, did like a dog, did your dog pass? Were you attacked by a dog? But also, what's the story of the dream? Because usually the story and what's inside of the dream is going to give you will give you the interpretation of what you need. And so going within the dream and taking time and maybe going into a meditative state and saying, okay, what does this mean? How does this relate to my past? How does this relate to today? Could it be something in the future? Is really going deep within you. Okay, so it's like, what's the action? Is the person you? There's like dream interpretation is really getting deep. Okay. And sometimes you get the insight, and then all of a sudden later on, it's like, oh, wait a minute, it means this. And you can, which is a great reason why you should journal it, especially if there's like reoccurring dreams on the same thing, because it's trying to tell you something. Just like when you meditate or you get the messages during the day, or the same kind of relationship or the same issue comes up, it comes out in your dreams. Okay. So like dream interpretation, actually dream interpretation brought out my psychic abilities because I had a lot of premonition precognitive dreams, and we all have them. It's not just me. And eventually it came out in my daytime. Okay. So dream interpretation. So I'm just going to put a little plug, come to my mystical dream interpretation. It's part of the sacred you, so you can find out more about yourself. And if you don't want to come, that's great. Just start journaling down your dreams and think about, what are my feelings in this? Why am I feeling it? How does this story relate to my life? What could this symbol mean? And just start to notice the reoccurring themes. So I'll leave you with
Beautiful. I was actually going to invite anybody that has a tribe here to mention their tribe, and you did, Pamela. Can you just say it one more time, that because I'm going to talk about the sacred you in the last few minutes.
It's mystical dream interpretation, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, and Wednesdays, right now until the time change, 11 a.m. Australia Eastern Time. Sorry, I always get confused, like the U.S. and I'm getting better, and
well, the East has two. Oh, sorry, it just cut out for me then. The East has two time zones. So we've got Eastern Standard Time and Eastern Daylight Time. So the daylight time is Sydney, and then the Standard Time is Queensland. It's all over the place here. Then we've got other times where Adelaide is only half an hour behind. It's just like, oh, for goodness sake.
Then go to the time converter. Go do an internet search. Go to time converter. It's 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and whatever it is in your country or time zone.
Time zone. That's it. Because we've got a few different time zones in the East. So I want to say thank you very much, and for your beautiful words of wisdom and your experience and your practices. These panels are always so inspiring. Heidi, you don't have a tribe?
Excuse me. I did have a tribe called Becoming Your Own Best Friend, and it's been on hold for a number of months just because I haven't been able to find the time to bring it up and to do things. So I'm kind of evaluating my time right now. I got involved in so many things. It was so excited when COVID was over and there was so much we could do, and all of a sudden it's like, yikes. Doing a lot of stuff.
Put my hand up for too much, she says. Yeah. Did you have a tribe in Sacred You, Sky?
No, I don't, but it sounds like something I need to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I'm a baby to Sacred You. I think I only joined last year in the I think it was the virtual festival.
Oh, the Harmony Fest. That was
yeah.
We'll have another one of those towards the end of the year. So you can have a chat with Sophia about that. So I'll just explain a little bit about our Sacred You community to our audience. We are growing, and this is beautiful. We have both men and women as members and tribe hosts and panelists and a lot of things that are going on. So what happens is that if you would like to join the Sacred You community and become a member, it's only $20 a month. And what you get for that is if you're taken into a membership portal, and there's over 20 tribes, and we call them tribes. And what these are, some people run them fortnightly, some run them weekly, some may run 2 tribes, and there is an array of topics for you to look at and immerse yourself in. And I run the Bewitching tribe where we do magic, astrology, perfumery, ritual, all kind of art. And so it's quite kind of a multi-creative one. And we've got the dreams, we've got self-empowerment. There's so many, and I know them, and I can't even think of what them others right now. But you can go into sacredyou.love, the website, and have a peruse, and you actually can join for 2 weeks to trial it for $1 Australian dollar, which is, in America, it's probably like 60 cents, I think. So you have today, all of their connection information will be there as well. So come and join us for $1. You cannot miss out. And in 2 weeks, you can actually, you could choose to watch a tribe a day, which is about an hour to hour and 15-minute call. And just in that time, the personal growth, if you're open to it and receiving it, is quite phenomenal. So yeah, come and join us. It's a really beautiful space with beautiful people. And again, I want to say thank you to Pamela, Sky, and Heidi. It was really lovely to be on call with you again. And I shall close this meeting off now, and we'll see you again.